Hello, Internet. It is I, the Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Recap. So, summer 2023. Oh my god. I I'm not sure how I can properly describe it. I mean, there's several words that I could use to describe it. I mean, there's weird, unpredictable, chaotic. Just the whole thing was a total roller coaster, and now I get to talk about it. So, this is a three-part recap. What you're watching now is part one, which is the non-losers. Part two will be the small losers slash mediocre performers. I kind of grouped those two together. And then part three will be the big losers. And you probably already noticed a theme with all three videos, and that is that all of them share this one word: loser. That's because summer was kind of rough. There weren't a whole lot of positives. It was mostly very negative in tone, especially like midsummer, like from mid June to like mid July. That was rough, so rough. It was depressing just to even look at the box office during that time. It was just ugh. I don't want to think about it. So that's why all three videos have loser in the title. But this is the positive video. Okay? So the negativity won't start coming in until part 2 and especially part 3. So so this video positive. So this is going over all of the winners of summer, all the movies that I deem successful. And let's get started. So May, we're starting off with a Marvel movie. Go figure. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This one's a little weird because, I had high expectations for this when it came to its box office because, the first two Guardians of the Galaxy movies, well received, audience favorites, and plus, James Gunn has a strong reputation with his movies. I mean, with the Guardians movies, and then the Suicide Squad, like 2 years ago. Like, dude has clout. And obviously, this is the beginning of May. Like, this is prime time for Marvel. Like, they own this weekend, pretty much. So, I was thinking this could be a $1 billion hit. Like, this should be a $1 billion hit realistically. But that's not what happened. In fact, this movie, initially, it kind of looked like a bit of a flop. Okay, flop is kind of a harsh term. It looked like a disappointment. It was looking like a disappointment because opening weekend was very subpar for MCU standards. 118 million. And I was like, uh-oh. That's not good. Because that's quite a bit worse than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which opened 146 million. And what made this 118 million bad was the fact that the MCU is becoming more and more front loaded in the last few years. Like increasingly so, like to a very uncomfortable degree. At the movies, they may have solid opening weekends and then they just crumble so fast afterwards. Like Black Widow was front loaded, although that had to deal with Disney Plus. Eternals was front loaded. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness was front loaded. Thor: Love and Thunder was front loaded, but it kind of got a little better near the end. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, that did fine, but Ant-Man and the Wasp, that barely doubled its opening weekend. And that was just a sign that, okay, things are not well in the MCU. Because it's clearly, it seems like only like hardcore fans are showing up. And then after opening weekend, they just dip. And that's never good. And there's also the fact that the MCU just overall has been struggling from like a creative sense. Like Phase 4 was considered a dud by many people. People look at Phase 4 and were just like, what was the point of that? Like it was low key a franchise killer. And then Phase 5 started with Ant-Man 3, and that movie was a total bust. So, and don't even get me started on the Disney Plus shows. That's a whole other conversation. So yeah, the MCU was not in a great spot, but I was thinking, okay, this should be able to avoid all the negativity surrounding the MCU. Then that opening weekend happened. I'm like, maybe not. But then something happened where I'm like, you know what? Maybe this won't be a total flop because it had a really strong second weekend, 48%, less than 50%, which I believe this is one of the best of the MCU. I think only the first Thor and the first Black Panther had better holds. And recently, MCU movies like second weekends have been just disastrous. Like 60% seems like the norm now for the MCU. You know, Doctor Strange 2 felt like two-thirds. Thor Love and Thunder was by two-thirds. Black Widow was two-thirds. And Ant-Man and the Wasp was like 70%. Like it was real ugly. So the fact that this avoided that, I was like, okay, this is encouraging. And its legs after that were really, really nice. And it ended up making 358 million domestically and 845 million worldwide, which is right in between the first Guardians movie and the second Guardians movie. So it didn't lose a whole lot of ground compared to Guardians 2. It looked like I really thought it would. I thought it would be a lot worse, but it managed to save itself and ultimately be a hit. So, yeah, so Guardians 3, it was looking real dire for a moment, but it managed to dig itself out of a hole, a potential hole. So, congrats to it. Thought it was a really good movie. I think it deserves its success. And I feel like this might be the only real positive Marvel's going to get this year, at least the MCU Marvel, because obviously Ant-Man 3 was a bust. Secret Invasion, yikes. And the Marvels, I'm not expecting that to do well at all. I feel like that's going to be a bomb in the making. But I could be wrong. But right now, it's not looking good. So yeah, while the MCU is in a death spiral, you know, at least you got Guardians 3. At least you made a bit of money off of that. So, yeah. And that's it for May. Yeah, we're going right to June, which should really tell you how the rest of the May movies did. So skipping all the way to June. I want to mention the Boogeyman real quick because, you know, I wasn't expecting anything like big from it at all. I wasn't like feeling any like hype surrounding it. And it had a pretty like bleh opening weekend, but it had solid legs, way more solid than I could have anticipated. And it did more than double its budget. Its budget was like 35 million. So it did all right. It did fine. I imagine it's probably made a little bit of a profit, so it just did good. That's all I can really say. It just did good. And that's really it. Okay. Across the Spider-Verse. Here we go. So, of all the summer movies, this was one of the ones where I was very confident in when it came to its box office, where I knew deep down this would be a hit. It was like this, Guardians 3, and Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Those are like the three where I'm like, these have to be hits. And, well, I got two of those right. So, um, yeah. But Across the Spider-Verse. This was the sequel to Into the Spider-Verse. And Into the Spider-Verse was a very interesting movie because, well, one, you know, it's an animated superhero movie. I mean, we have like a bajillion of those, mainly thanks to DC, but this is a theatrical animated superhero movie. You don't see a whole lot of those. Even then, most of them are like original movies, like The Incredibles and Megamind. This is based off an existing IP. Um, and there was like that fact, and the fact that the movie just looked so different from anything in the market. This was like a first time film, basically, with its style and how it looked. So expectations were kind of, no one really knew how to feel, no one knew what to think, no one knew what to expect. And then it came out and it had a pretty modest opening weekend, but it found an audience later on. You know, it had very, very strong legs, made almost 400 million worldwide on a budget of 90 million, won the Oscar for best animated feature, grew a huge following over the next few years, and became a movie that actually changed the animation industry. Like, it basically became a blueprint for other movies. Like, other people like in the industry looked at Spider Verse and were like, "That looks so cool. We should do something like that." We should stop trying to be like Pixar and stop trying to be like ultra realistic and be more stylized, be different, be creative. And that's how we have movies like Mitchell's versus the Machines and the Bad Guys and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem. Right? It led this kind of a whole little revolution for animation. So obviously, Across the Spider Verse had the advantage of a very, very, very well received predecessor. And what happened is the definition of the sequel effect, where you have your predecessor does really well, and that success will lead to the sequel doing way better because the audience will get much bigger as a result. There have been plenty of examples of that. Shrek 2, um, let's see. Yeah, I know the Shrek 2 is a huge one. I guess Toy Story 2 is another one. There's 22 Jump Street is a great one. Captain America Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. There's quite a few of them out there, but I can't list them all. That would take too long. But yeah, and this box office, like compared to the first movie, man, there was a huge jump. A massive jump. I mean, it's made 381 million domestically, which is double the first movie. You rarely see a jump like that ever when it comes to sequels. And overall, like, it made like over 300 million more than the first movie. So it was a massive spike when compared to the original. And that's mainly thanks to, the first movie's success and its reputation. And not to mention, this movie had a prime summer date. Like, Sony positioned this movie as a big deal. Like, they really did. And as a result, it had a huge box office. Not to mention, the movie was also super duper good. Like, hella good. And the fact is, it opened with 120 million opening weekend, which, like, for an animated movie, it's like it's a rare breed for them to open with triple digits. I believe the ones that have been able to do it, there's like Shrek 2, there's Shrek the Third, there's Toy Story 3, there's Minions, there's Finding Dory, Secret Life of Pets, am I missing Incredibles 2, Toy Story 4, I know did it, Frozen 2, and then like Minions 2, and now this. So again, rare breed. And for Sony Animation, this decimates their previous highest grossing movie. Like, I mean, just looking at this, like shot past the rest of them. And for a while, like, it felt like this was going to be the big movie of the summer because obviously no one could have predicted what would happen later with Barbie. No one saw that coming. But for a while, it felt like this would be like the peak of summer. And it's also a little fact that this had the biggest opening day of 2023 for a little bit before Barbie came along, so that's nice. And then for a while, this was like literally the only positive news out there because things were so dire in June. So yeah, Across the Spider Verse, undisputed hit. Probably the third most impressive performance of the whole summer. Because well, two movies were a bit more impressive in my opinion, and these two movies are commonly grouped together. I'm pretty sure you can guess what those movies are. But yeah, Across the Spider Verse, mega hit. Hopefully, Beyond the Spider Verse, I imagine that should do better than Across the Spider Verse because that hype train is gonna like ramp up once Beyond the Spider Verse gets like a release date again because that had to get delayed because you know it just wasn't possible for that to come out next year. And not to mention like I have to mention, like the how the animators were treated. I thought that was just terrible. I'm really hoping that that doesn't happen again. Hoping they're treated with more respect and to treat them more like human beings. With like Beyond the Spider Verse, I will give them if it takes till like 2027, 2028. I will not care. Give the animators time. Just make sure Beyond the Spider Verse is the best movie it can be. So, and if it is, we could have potentially the greatest animated trilogy of all time, something that rivals the original Toy Story trilogy. Like it's kind of like the Toy Story trilogy of like this generation, really, when it comes to acclaim. And besides, like the original Toy Story changed everything, like being the first CGI animated movie. And Into the Spider Verse changed the game again. So yeah, yeah. Across the Spider Verse, big hit. Glad it did well. And then we move on to July because actually, wait, no, we don't. Elemental. This okay. This right here, I'm amazed I'm even talking about it in this video because for the longest time, I was convinced that I was gonna only talk about this as a loser, as a failure, as a bomb, because this. So this movie, when it was coming out, the hype just wasn't there at all. It was concerningly lukewarm. And the fact that Pixar the last few years, it's been rough. Like after Toy Story 4, things took a hard turn to terrible. I mean, Onward that had to deal with COVID killing the movie after like 2 weeks. But even then it didn't exactly have a great start before COVID killed it. The next three Pixar movies, Soul, Luca, Turning Red, all got dumped to Disney Plus, which had to be which I imagine was a huge slap in the face to the people who made those movies, and it probably made like those employees feel like Disney just doesn't value Pixar anymore. Made a lot of people believe that. But then Lightyear came out last year, and people were like, "Okay, this should be a hit. This because it's Lightyear's Buzz Lightyear's Toy Story. How could this not be a hit?" Yeah, it was probably the biggest bomb of last year. Absolutely, I can just show you. Like Lightyear cost 200 million, made 218 million worldwide. Just God. Like it did worse than The Good Dinosaur, which I didn't think would be possible, but it happened. So yeah, just and Lightyear, I don't want to get into that. I've made too many videos talking about Lightyear's failure, but after Lightyear bombed as bad as it did, my expectations for Elemental's chances at the box office, they fell so far. They fell so far down. And then opening weekend happened and opened with 29.6 million. The only Pixar movie to have a worst opening weekend was the first Toy Story. Pixar's first movie. And that it wasn't even by much. It was only like a little bit. Like this was like in 1995, like 29.1 million, which back then that was a pretty darn good number. But it's 2023, times have changed. Standards have been raised when it comes to box office, like what's deemed a success and what's deemed a failure these days. So this number was a travesty, an absolute travesty. And I was thinking, there is no way in hell this is ever going to make a profit. This is going to do worse. This is going to be a bigger bomb than Lightyear. And it may kill Pixar completely. But things got strange, very strange. And I noticed that immediately because its weekday legs after opening weekend were very strong. And I was like, okay. And then its second weekend only fell 38%. I was like, okay, that's good. But still too little too late. Nothing's going to save this movie. But then it kept its legs were still kept getting strong. In fact, they were getting stronger for a time. I mean, 34%, 17%, 9%. It got past 100 million, which I thought was kind of a pipe dream. I thought the movie would just die after like 2 weeks, but it kept going and going and going and going until eventually it lost all of its theaters. Like that happens to any movie. But then it ended up making 154 million domestically and 481 million worldwide, which sure isn't great for a movie that cost $200 million. But considering how it started, this performance is an absolute miracle. Like, it's a straight miracle. And especially overseas, overseas really saved the movie because the movie did like stupidly well in South Korea. Mainly because like the director of the movie, is from there, and his movie like really appealed to that market, and that market really showed up because like, let me show you, South Korea, like 54 million. That's a very good number for that market. And compared to other Pixar movies, like Elemental, it didn't do like the worst. Far from the worst. I mean, like compared to Lightyear, it more than doubled that. And then, well, Onward's kind of pointless to talk about, but it like more than tripled that. I mean, it made more than Cars 3. And Cars 3, that's a part of a franchise, a well known franchise. So, yeah. Yeah, and I believe it's like the biggest original movie. Actually, no, it's not. But I think it was like the biggest. I don't remember. Like, is this like the biggest original animated movie? I don't remember like the last biggest one was. What was the last one? Oh, I'm struggling. I know it's been a long time since we've had like a big original animated movie do this well. Mainly it's just been sequels. Um I don't know, it's been a very long time since we've had an original animated movie make this much money. And Disney did say that this movie would likely end up being like profitable like very shortly. And the movie did have a very strong premiere on Disney Plus once it got there. So I can't call this a loser, really. It was looking like a loser for a very, very long time, but it saved itself somehow. Maybe it was because of the weird advertising where they had like these fake crowd reactions, like in the theater when like Claude, this little thing holding that flower, showed up on screen, which I still don't get that. I don't get that at all, but you know, I maybe it worked. Maybe maybe people saw those weird ads and were like, what's this movie about? And then they end up watching it. So I don't know. But Elemental, it could have been a total disaster, but it ended up doing okay. Just okay. Which is more than I can say for a lot of other summer movies that came out this year. Like, ugh, so Elemental, you saved yourself. I don't know how you did it, but you saved yourself. You made more than The Flash, which is something I never would have predicted like several months back. Like going into summer, I would have been like, oh, The Flash is going to dominate. Oh, how wrong I was. So, yeah. So now we leave June and we enter July. Sound of Freedom. All right. Ooh, the one movie this summer I didn't make a prediction video for, and that's had nothing to do with politics. I want to keep saying that because I feel like some of you may not believe me, but I swear it's not political in this at all. It's mainly because the movie came out of thin air. I knew nothing about it. I didn't even know it was a wide release until the last minute. And it came out like on a Tuesday, which was like 4th of July, but still a Tuesday release was weird. So I said, you know what? I don't want to make a video on it. I'm just not going to deal with it. But then the movie, became what it was, what it is. So with Sound of Freedom, I probably would have predicted, even if I didn't make a prediction video, even if I knew about it like several months in advance, I would have been like, this movie's probably going to make no money, maybe like 20 million max. I don't see this, being a huge hit. But then I heard numbers of pre-sales and pre-sale numbers being like really strong, and I was like, that's interesting. And then opening day happened and opened with 14 million opening day, which I was like, damn, oh, where did this come from? And then it fell off hard the next day, and I was like, okay, it's probably gonna have like a strong opening day, and then it's just gonna just die after that. But that didn't really happen like at all because opened with like had a 19 million opening weekend and overall 41 million in 6 days, which is not too shabby, like not in the slightest. And then things got very weird. It instead of like slowing down, it got stronger. Like in a way most movies, aren't supposed to perform, because usually movie opens and then business just, it goes down and down and down and down because that's how it's supposed to work. But Sound of Freedom isn't most movies because it went up 39% second weekend. And the only time this happens is if it's for like a holiday, like during like Christmas time or something, where the box office gets really weird. But this wasn't Christmas time. This was post 4th of July, which makes it even more insane. And then it had really good legs after that, but eventually it did die down. And now it made 183 million domestic, 210 million worldwide on a budget of, I believe it was like 14 million. So this movie made a huge profit. So, and I know like some of this money was definitely because of like crowdfunding. I know that was like a portion of it, but still, it doesn't change the fact that the movie was a huge hit, a mini phenomenon, kind of like say other like a Passion of the Christ, another movie that you would never have guessed that would become like the biggest R-rated movie of all time in the States. Like that movie should have made like 30, 40 million total, and it made like 370 million domestic and like 600 million worldwide. Obviously this isn't that, but I mean they both share the same actor, funny enough, but still, like, never in a million years I would have predicted this. No one could have predicted this. No one on planet Earth could have confidently said this is going to make more than Fast X, than Transformers Rise of the Beast, than The Flash, than Mission Impossible, than Indiana Jones. No one would have said that. No one. But that's what happened. And I know there's been lots of controversy surrounding the movie. There was like this conspiracy that like AMC was like trying to bring the movie down, like trying to, sabotaged the movie by making people leave, even though it was mainly because of bad air conditioning. I don't know about you. I don't want to be in a room where air conditioning is shot. I I would hate that. But there was that little weird thing, and then some people involved with the movie, including like the guy this is based off of. The main guy. Apparently he's got alleged, like, I believe, sexual harassment claims. I haven't looked too much into that. So it's a lot of it's a whole lot going on. But overall, Sound of Freedom, big hit. And it's a hit the box office really needed because things were so awful in late June. Like, God, like, I was like, I thought Mission Impossible would pull us out of, like, pull the box office out of the hole it dug itself in, but Sound of Freedom did it first. So yeah, so Sound of Freedom, huge hit. Not much else to say. All right, what's next? Insidious: The Red Door, Insidious 5. Now with this, I wasn't expecting much out of it because, like, this is the fifth Insidious movie. I mean, like, the only Insidious movie people like is the first one, and then the quality just dipped from there. I mean, at the first one, I'll show you. The first one did very well. The sequel did even better thanks to the sequel effect. The third movie fell off, and then the fourth movie was weirdly the biggest of the bunch. And then you have part five. When you reach like part five, you expect people to just like just drop the series and just be like, you know what, I'm done. Like, you would expect franchise fatigue to hit, but for some weird reason, some unexplainable reason, Insidious has been able to avoid franchise fatigue. It's immune to it because Insidious: The Red Door opened with 33 million and made 82 million, which was just a bit lower than Insidious Chapter 2, but worldwide it is the biggest of 186 million. And I don't know how this even happened because the movie wasn't even good from what I've heard. I didn't watch it. But cuz why would I? But yeah, like, reaction was so lackluster, but yet people still showed up to see it. And it just boggles the mind. So, like, I don't know. But it was a hit when the box office really needed hits. Like this and Sound of Freedom kind of, like, restarted like the positive energy in the box office that would eventually culminate with Barbenheimer later on. But yeah, Insidious: The Red Door, it made money. It was a hit. They're saying this is the last one. I don't believe that. I seriously doubt the studio looking at these numbers are like, you know what? We're done. No. They're thinking about Insidious 6. They're just thinking about how they want to do it. Okay? Because, like, there's no way they're not going to just make another one after how this movie did. So, Insidious: The Red Door, you were a hit. I don't know how you were a hit, but you were a hit. So, yeah. Skipping right past Mission Impossible, which is a sentence I thought I would never say when it comes to making a winner video, but we'll talk about Mission Impossible in part 3. Now, July 21st, a day that will live not in infamy, but in celebration when it comes to cinema. Barbie and Oppenheimer, Barbenheimer, as it's collectively known, happened. And it was something to experience. Ooh, like, these two movies saved summer from oblivion, saved summer from complete embarrassment. These two movies together brought almost $1 billion domestically. That's not even including worldwide. Worldwide, it's well over 2 billion. Like, And these two movies when they came out together, like that weekend was the biggest in summer history with over 314 some million dollars the whole weekend. There's only been like three other times in history where the box office has reached over 300 million. And those three times they were like in non-summer seasons. I know there was like the weekend of it was Force Awakens. Yeah, it was Force Awakens, Infinity War, and Endgame. That's it. But now Barbenheimer came in. That became number four when it came to 300 million opening weekend, 300 million overall weekends. Yeah, it was crazy. It made you forget about all the bad shit that happened before this, and not to mention, the writer's strike and the actor's strike. The writer's strike was like 2 months in, but then the actor's strike happened like right before Barbenheimer. But like this good news, this like overwhelmingly positive news, made people forget about all of that for a time. So yeah. So let's talk about these two movies. But first, Barbie. Oh, Barbie. Wow. Ugh. This is it. The big movie of not just summer, but 2023. That is the fact that this happened is amazing to me because if someone were like I don't even have words. I can't like with Barbie. If someone were to tell me, "Oh, Barbie's gonna make $1 billion," I would have laughed. I wouldn't have believed them for a second because I mean, like a Barbie movie making $1 billion, it just sounded ridiculous in my head. Kind of like how a Mario movie making $1 billion sounded ridiculous, but then it happened, and then the same thing happened again with Barbie. And with Barbie, like I knew this movie had a lot of hype going into it because like the trailers really sold. Hell, people were like sold on the mere images of the movie, like when it was like still in production. Like the first images of Barbie and Ken, people was Margot Robbie as Barbie and Ryan Gosling as Ken. People were like, "Oh, okay, this looks interesting." And the fact you had a Greta Gerwig, making this movie, from her movies, like Lady Bird and A Little Women 2019, like I thought she was an interesting choice for a project like this. And like the trailers really sold people on the movie because they looked so weird and different, and people were like, "Wow, this looks like something I should watch. This looks like something I should experience." And then the hype just grew and grew and grew, and then just um, and then it hit like it's a fever pitch before opening weekend. But even then, like even when I was hearing like, oh, like ticket sales are the best since like Avatar: The Way of Water, like I was thinking this can't possibly live up to the hype. Like this, we gotta temper expectations down because remember, summer's been rough. Like we gotta like calm down a little bit. We gotta bring expectations down to earth. So I was thinking, oh, well, I'll probably make like open like 80 million, maybe make like 200 million domestically, solid number. Then Thursday happened, 22.3 million previews, the best of the year. And I was like, okay, this is not going to be a small movie. And then opening day, 70 million, best of the year. And I'm like, okay, what is happening? And then opening weekend ended up being 162 million, best of the year, beating Mario, which I wasn't sure was possible. I didn't think any other movie this year would beat Mario in terms of opening weekend, but Barbie did it, and it did it alongside like Oppenheimer in the marketplace doing super well like at the same time. And then things just got crazier from there. It just escalated. Look at these midweek numbers: 26, 26, 23, 21 million. These are weekday numbers. Weekday. These are not weekend numbers. This is weekday. So making these numbers on a weekday is crazy. And then it just kept going. It made like 350 million like after 2 weekends. That's more than what I've ever would have predicted for this movie. And then it just kept going and going. It was number one for 4 weeks. And then now it's made 630 million domestically, which is probably how much I thought it would have made I would have predicted it would have made worldwide, like at best. And it's the 11th biggest movie ever domestically. And worldwide it made 1.4 billion, which is the biggest movie ever for Warner Brothers, and worldwide it's the 14th biggest movie ever, beating Mario. So, world domestically and worldwide, biggest of the year. It's so insane because this year is so this year feels like a shit post. The 2023 box office feels like a shit post. It just feels like these things are just happening just to make me look foolish. Like it's just like I like this was of all I really thought Guardians of the Galaxy 3 would make a billion. I thought Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning would make a billion. But Barbie, no. Mm-mm. That was never like a thought in my head. And if it was as like a joke. But it happened. So, yeah, I mean with Barbie, the meme work. It worked like a charm because with the Barbenheimer meme, all it did was just fuel both movies. Like it didn't hurt either movie, it just fueled both of them and they both like shot to the stratosphere as a result. So, Barbie, there's not much else to say. It was uh I mean the numbers speak for themselves. They really do. So, yeah. Yeah. But as as incredible as Barbie did, we cannot sleep on Oppenheimer. We cannot. Because Oppenheimer did incredible business as well. So, Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan's latest movie. You know, I had a feeling this would do well. I mean, Christopher Nolan, he's a brand within himself. Like, his name sells movie tickets at this point. He's developed a huge fan following, so obviously those fans were going to show up to see this. But even then, this movie defied my expectations too. Because, Nolan. Gotta go to Nolan. Nolan, where are you? There you are. I mean, Nolan, yeah, like Dark Knight trilogy, Inception, Interstellar, Dunkirk. Tenet was a bust, but it was mainly because of COVID and the fact that I think they really jumped the gun when it came to releasing the movie in theaters. I feel like they should have waited at least a year or so before releasing Tenet because when they released Tenet, nobody was going to the theater at all, and as a result, the domestic numbers are pretty dismal. And then the whole thing with the HBO Max experiment pretty much killed Christopher Nolan's relationship with Warner Brothers, and so with Oppenheimer, he hooked up with Universal. And what's really funny about the whole Barbenheimer thing is that Barbie was from Warner Brothers, so Christopher Nolan was going up against his former, I guess his former studio. So that's really funny. But with Oppenheimer, I would have predicted probably like 200 million domestic, same as Barbie, really. Maybe like open like 60 million, make like 200 million, like something like that. That's what I would have said like at the beginning of summer. But then the Barbenheimer meme started, and then it blew up like in a big way because initially it was like a battle, it was like a war, but then the war turned into friendship, and both movies people decided to group both movies together and like in a fun way. It's very similar to what I saw like a few years back when Animal Crossing New Horizons and Doom Eternal came out like on the same day, because both games are very different in uh, tone and style and everything. But people grouped them together because they thought it would be fun, and it led to like a lot of really fun memes and fan art. So this was very much like that, but for movies. And I feel like the Barbenheimer meme actually helped Oppenheimer more than Barbie, because Barbie probably would have done well anyway. But Oppenheimer, I feel like the Barbenheimer memes helped, make Oppenheimer an even bigger deal than it already was. But I haven't even gotten to its box office. Opened with 82 million, and it was in second place behind Barbie. Like, like, yeah. I'm trying to find it. Is it here? It's not here. Boo. Whatever. But yeah, 82 million behind Barbie. Like, looking at its box office, like it opened like 10.5 million Thursday preview. I'm like, damn, this is with Barbie? Like, shit. And then 33 million opening day, and then 82 million opening weekend. And again, all this at number two. Like, the only movie that opened bigger than this and was at number one was Inside Out. And that went up against like the second weekend of Jurassic World. This Oppenheimer was going up against the first weekend of Barbie. Both came out the same day at the same time. So arguably this is way more impressive than that. And then it's like weekday numbers all in the double digits. And then its legs have been very strong, just like Barbie. It's been playing pretty much the whole summer. And now it has made 321 million domestic, 926 million worldwide on a budget of like 100 million. And to think of its domestic number, that's important for several. One, it's the biggest ever for a movie that was never number one. The biggest ever by a comfortable margin. It beat Sing. I don't know why Sing ever had that record. I don't know. But yeah, it's well ahead of the rest. It's the first to reach 300 million and never be number one. But then as an R-rated movie, specifically like an R-rated drama, making this much money is absurd to me. Because for like R-rated movies, like domestically it's number 7, only behind the Deadpool movies, It Chapter 1, Joker, American Sniper, and Passion of the Christ. Like, that's, for R-rated movies, that's an elite group right there. Like, I never would have predicted Oppenheimer would even be near that group. And then, like, worldwide, it's number 2 for R-rated movies, only behind Joker. Like, it's unbelievable. It really is. It's madness. For a 3-hour, it's the fact that a 3-hour R-rated drama like this made almost $1 billion is wild to me. But hey, I mean, that's the power of memes, and that's the power of having a really strong movie. So, Oppenheimer, really Barbenheimer as a whole, it's going to be the one thing people talk about when it comes to 2023. Like, at the end of the year, when people talk about how 2023 did in terms of movies, Barbenheimer is going to be at the top of the things to discuss. Because that weekend, I imagine like a lot of like movie theaters out there, that was pure magic. After a month of misery, like that weekend it was just pure magic. So, yeah, Barbenheimer, biggest success story of 2023 easily. A success story no one saw coming, and a success story the box office desperately needed. So, Yeah, Barbenheimer, congrats. Both of you did excellent. Both of you were very solid movies. Although I think Oppenheimer was objectively the better movie, but that's just me. I still thought Barbie was fine. But both movies were good and they did spectacular. So, yeah. No, and then it was all downhill from there. Like, Barbenheimer was the last bit of real happiness at the box office because after that, it never got better. Even right now, as I'm recording this, like there is a very clear slide after Barbenheimer, but we still have like what a few more movies to discuss, like four more to discuss when it comes to winners. The next one is Talk to Me from A24. So this was just like a little horror movie made by YouTubers. Yes, I'm being serious about that. Made by YouTubers, which is something I didn't really know until later on. And the thing is, like YouTube movies that are made by YouTubers, they have a really negative reputation. You have some trash out there, some real hot garbage. I think there's like some movies like not cool from like Shane Dawson, F the Prom from like the Fine Brothers, and then the Smosh movie. It's bad. It's rancid. But this one was different because unlike all of those, this was good. And with this being with A24, I mean A24 has a very solid reputation. Like they basically distribute all the weird movies, all the movies that are non-mainstream friendly but have a layer of cool to them that like I guess they really appeal to I guess people who are like want something different, people like that, like who were kind of just I don't know where I was going with that, but A24 movies, they hit different. Let's just say that. But with Talk to Me, no one had high expectations for this. People thought it would probably make like I remember there was predictions where it would make like 3 million opening weekend, but it that did not happen. Made like 10 million opening weekend. I was like, "Okay, that's good. Very good." And his legs were very strong. It had a long life. It well, not really a long life, but its legs were still quite good. Made 47 million domestic, 65 million worldwide, which doesn't seem like a lot. Well, for A24 standards, it's spectacular for them because obviously they're a smaller studio. They're not like a Disney or Warner Brothers or Paramount or Universal. They're not like or Sony. They're not like them. They're on a much smaller scale. But Talk to Me, it's their fourth biggest movie domestically. It beat Hereditary. It's only behind Lady Bird, Uncut Gems, and then Everything Everywhere All at Once. And it really helped that Talk to Me had a really strong reputation. Hell, like I watched the movie several weeks after it came out because I was like, should I watch it? And I was like, screw it, I'm going to watch it, and I did. And I didn't regret it for a second because I thought it was very very good. So yeah, Talk to Me was a nice little hit. I'm glad it did well. It deserved to do well. And yeah, I'm just glad it did well. So we're done with July. Now we move on to August. This is going to be very short with August. So next up, Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. So this movie, I wasn't sure how it would do for the longest time. Reactions to it were mixed to say the least. Some people were down for it, some people weren't. Um, the fact that the Ninja Turtles, like the whole box office of Ninja Turtles, is very inconsistent. I mean, you go from like the high that is the 90 movie to the low that is Ninja Turtles 3, and then TMNT 2007 just did okay. And then Ninja Turtles 2014 Bay Turtles, that movie did very well. And yeah, Out of the Shadows, which just bombed completely. and now here we are with Mutant Mayhem. So I didn't know how this would do. I really didn't. But then, like, when it was getting closer to release, I had my eye on this movie for quite a long time because I am a Ninja Turtles fan. So I was always going to be interested in this. And then, like, before the movie was coming out, I was hearing, like, really good things about it. I was like, okay, the momentum's starting to build. Maybe this will lead to something. Maybe this might make some money. And it did make some money. It did pretty alright, all things considered. It opened on a Wednesday, which is kind of weird, but opened with like 10 million on Wednesday, made like 43 million over 5 days, 28 for the 3 day. And it was number four. The fact that a number four movie can make that much really shows you that the box office at that point was still going good. Like that, but unfortunately, August 4th, that was like the last really strong weekend we had. But after that, it just fucking tanked, dude. It went down fierce. Like it just it went down like a stone. Yeah, Mutant Mayhem, 43 million for 5 day. That's pretty good. And his legs have been solid ever since. And it's now made 116 million domestically, 172 million worldwide. That's fine for a movie that cost $70 million. But like so obviously it was more of a domestic hit than an international hit. But domestically, it made more than The Flash, which again is something I never would have predicted months ago. It's like, this thing about all the movies that did better than The Flash, it's crazy to me. But now 116 million is quite a bit better than the last Ninja Turtle movie we had in theaters that was being Out of the Shadows, which had 82 million. Sure, it did better worldwide, but Mutant Mayhem cost way less. They were very economical with the budget. They weren't like go big or go home with that. So yeah. So I would call this a hit. Some of you may disagree, and that's fine. But I think the positives definitely outweigh the negatives when it comes to its box office. Not to mention it made a ton of money in merch, so it really doesn't matter. I mean, this movie's gonna they already announced like a sequel and a show on Paramount Plus, so this is gonna be our new Ninja Turtles, basically. And we'll see how long it lasts. But the movie I thought was good, even though I had to wait 20 minutes for it to start because the stupid projector in the movie theater wasn't working, so I had to sit there for 20 minutes. It sucked, but the movie itself was good. And I'm actually pretty interested to see where this goes, with the show and the sequel. I'm hoping, I'm hoping for the best. But yeah, Mutant Mayhem, I would classify it as a hit. So, yeah. All right, what's next? The Meg 2. Okay. This one is a little. It's kind of the opposite of Mutant Mayhem because this one, obviously, it was more of an international hit but than a domestic hit. But domestically, I mean, it could have been worse. Like, the first Meg opened with like 45 million. Yeah, the first Meg, 45 million. It was a shock hit, if to say the least. It made like 500 million worldwide. But then like a sequel like 5 years later, like I was not expecting much at all. Like I feel like the hype or the ironic hype that fueled the first movie, it just wasn't there for the sequel. I didn't feel it going into it. And then reviews came out and they were very poor. And I was like, this movie's gonna tank hard in the States. But then it opened with 30 million. It did better than Mutant Mayhem. Or at least it opened better, which I didn't think would happen at all. I thought this would open like 20 million at best, but 30 million, it's not bad. His legs were pretty mediocre after that, and it made like it's now made 82 million, which is quite a bit worse than the first movie. And I hit the wrong thing, my bad. Um, as you see there, Big drop off from the first movie domestically. Worldwide, kind of the same thing, but it's not as severe. But 391 million, that on a budget of like 129 million, that's still a hit technically. It still made money. I don't know how much money Warner Brothers is gonna get from that because a decent chunk of that change came from China, and China, like the whole, like how much a studio gets from that country. Apparently, it's way lower than it is like here. Like here, it's like a 50-50 split with like theaters, what theaters get and what the studio gets, and China's like 25%. But still, these numbers aren't bad. They aren't bad at all. So I can't. I'd be lying if I called this movie like a disappointment because like what the hell were the expectations for this? So yeah, Meg 2 is technically a hit. It's not a strong hit, but it's still a hit, although I would advise against making a Meg 3. I feel like that would just be a bad investment. But Meg 2, you did better than I expected. You didn't embarrass yourself. So, good job. And then the rest of August, we're not talking about at all. And you'll understand why when I make part 2 and 3. Alright, and then last, we have Equalizer 3, which came out a few weeks ago. And yes, this is a summer movie because this came out Labor Day weekend. And, if Labor Day, that's the last weekend of the summer, it counts. So we're talking about it. With Equalizer 3, I mean, so far his performance, I mean, opened with like 34 million, which is like on par with the other two. I thought there'd be a bit of a drop off, but nope. It's on the same level. So I was like, okay, that's good. Then second weekend happened, and oof, it fell by 2/3. I'm not sure why that happened. I'm still not sure. I think that second weekend drop is very strange. But after that, it's been able to hold steady. It's now by 81 million. And it'll probably make like 90 million total, which is like slightly less than the first two movies. Which, like, for a sequel, I say you need to either make more, make the same amount, or just have a small drop off. And this had a small drop off, so that's good. It's in the healthy. It's in the a healthy spot for a sequel. And worldwide, it's made like 100, close to 150 million. It costs like 70 million, so it won't make like a huge profit. But I imagine once it hits PVOD, it'll make its money back. But I mean, compared to like other movies this summer, like other sequels, like this isn't too bad. It really isn't. It could have done worse. So yeah, can't call it a flop. Can't call it a disappointment because again, like expectations for this weren't exactly sky high. It's not like this was expected to be $1 billion hit or anything. So Equalizer 3, you did okay. That's how I would describe its run. Okay. And that's as far as I'm gonna go with that. And that's it for summer. Yeah. So these were like the highs of summer. So I hope you really enjoyed all that positivity because it's going away real soon. Cause now I gotta do part 2, which is going over all of the smaller movies that I can't call hits at all, or movies that just did like mediocre. And there's a lot of them. I imagine that video is going to be very, very, very long. So brace yourself for that. And then part 3 will be the big losers, the movies that cost a whole lot of money and just completely whiffed it at the box office. So stay tuned for those two, for parts 2 and 3. They will come in the next few days, so stay tuned for those. But yeah, that's it. That's all. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn on notifications, share the whole drill. We'll check out more videos on the homepage. I made like plenty of recap videos on the channel. I made like, this is like my fourth big summer recap. I did one for 2019, 2021, and 2022, and now 2023. So you want to watch those or any of the past recap videos I made. You want to watch my recap videos for like May, June, July, and August of this year. You can go right ahead. There's also the canceled series where I go over all the movies that were supposed to come out but didn't. You know, I'm at 207, 208. Let me check very quickly. I'm pretty sure it's 208. I'm positive it is. 208. 208, yes. 208. Now, I know the writer's strike is over, which is good, but the actor's strike is still going on. Until that ends, things won't really get back to normal. Even then, once things get back to normal, it's going to be a headache because there's going to be a lot of movies like you can't like a lot of these movies that were still in production. You can't expect them to just automatically just like you know get back to where they left off because you have to like rebuild sets and get everyone back together. That's going to be a mess. So I imagine there's going to be plenty of canceled videos coming in the near future because of that. But for right now, there's 208 of them. So if you want to watch any of them from beginning to now, want to binge them all from beginning to now, I highly encourage you to do that. So go do it. There's also box office predictions where I predict box office for movies. Every movie here that I talked about, with the lone exception of Sound of Freedom, I made prediction videos for. So if you want to watch any of them, go right ahead. And you want to watch any of the past prediction videos I made this year or any other years I've been doing this, you can go right ahead. And yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out. Goodbye.